Hi there, and welcome to Out There, a Cryptid podcast. I'm Josh, and today we're talking about one of those cryptids everyone knows and loves. Whether they're every little kid's dream or just a fun symbol of magic and mystery in pop culture, unicorns have a special place in our imaginations. But is it possible these fairy tale creatures are really more than just rainbows and sparkles? Let's dive in. We are 1 month into this new Out There, and I gotta say, I am loving it. We still would love to hear your thoughts, so head over to our Discord server to tell us all of your thoughts. And if you're loving everything, head over to our Patreon, where you can get early access to episodes and more exclusive content to come for only $5 a month. That's less than a drink at Starbucks, so think about that. Trade your Starbucks for cryptids. We'll get into unicorns right after this. I know what you're thinking. Yes, we are talking about those sparkly rainbow-loving creatures that might actually have a little bit more to their story than just glitter and fairy tales. Believe it or not, there are ancient legends, surprising folklore, and even possible video evidence that suggests unicorns might not be as imaginary as we thought. So, if you're thinking this episode is all rainbows and bedtime stories, think again. Now, unicorns are usually described as elegant horse-like creatures with a slender, graceful build that adds to their mystical vibe. They're often pictured with a long, flowing mane and tail, making them look even more ethereal. Of course, their most famous feature is the single spiraling horn on their forehead, which is said to have magical abilities, like purifying water, healing sickness, and even protecting against evil. While they're typically shown as having a pure white coat that symbolizes innocence and purity, some stories give them multicolored or shimmering fur, making them feel more magical. Their eyes are often described as large, bright, and full of wisdom and kindness, while their hooves are sometimes thought to be cloven, adding to their otherworldly charm. What's crazy is that almost every civilization from nearly every continent has stories of these mythical creatures, each describing a strikingly similar being, despite vast distances and limited communication between cultures. The first documented report of a unicorn-like creature dates back to ancient Mesopotamian artwork around 2000 BCE. It is a perfectly crafted seal discovered in Harappa, which is an archaeological site in Punjab, Pakistan. The seal features a unicorn-like creature with a single horn, and above the horn, there's an inscription written in the mysterious Indus script, which has yet to be fully deciphered. This artifact was then purchased by the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford in 1956. It is a very stunning example of the skill and craftsmanship of the people of the Indus Valley civilization. While the unicorn symbol remains a subject of debate, it's one of the earliest known depictions of a creature that could be seen as a precursor to the modern-day unicorn myth. One of the earliest written descriptions comes from the 4th century BCE. The Greek physician and historian Ctesias. In his work Indica, which was based on stories from travelers to India, he described a creature that sounds a lot like a unicorn. According to Ctesias, the animal was about the size of a horse, but was actually a wild donkey, and it had a single horn protruding from the center of its forehead. He painted a detailed picture saying the creature's body was white, its eyes were a striking blue, and its horn was about 1.5 feet long, with multiple colors. Ctesias didn't claim to have personally seen the unicorn-like creature. He was recounting stories from Indian travelers who had encountered them. In his account, he described the creatures as being wild and living in the forests of India, where they were difficult to catch. He didn't provide specific details about what the creatures were doing when they were seen, but it suggested that they were elusive and rarely encountered by humans. Ctesias mentioned that the animals were known for their beauty and power, and he included them in his writings as part of the exotic and mysterious wildlife of India. But the creature's wild and elusive nature only added to their mythical status. It is possible that this description may have been influenced by the actual animals seen in India at the time, but the way Ctesias explained them certainly adds to the mystical nature of unicorns in history. In that same year, the famous Greek philosopher Aristotle claimed to have known about these creatures in India. In his writings, Aristotle also made reference to a one-horned animal that he called the Indian ass, which aligns closely with the descriptions offered by Ctesias. Aristotle was known for his careful observations and methodical approach to documenting natural history. So when he acknowledged the existence of this creature in his work, Historia Animalium, it was major. While he didn't have direct access to the creatures himself, Aristotle cited that the accounts of travelers and traders who visited the East. The Indian ass was depicted similarly, a wild horse-sized creature with a single horn in the middle of its forehead. But Aristotle described it as a horse-like animal, which made it distinct from the other, more common types of donkeys or asses. He referenced its horn as being something that was similar to the descriptions provided by Ctesias, about 1 feet in length, and like Ctesias, Aristotle did not offer further details on its behavior. Interestingly, Aristotle's mention of the Indian ass not only repeated the features outlined by Ctesias, but also contributed to the idea that this creature was native to India or the surrounding regions. Aristotle did not dispute Ctesias' account, but rather seemed to reinforce it, positioning the unicorn-like creature as part of the wider exotic fauna of distant lands. He was one of the first to frame these creatures as real animals rather than myth. Aristotle, however, was cautious in fully accepting the existence of the creature. Though he acknowledged the possibility that the Indian ass might exist, he didn't regard it as definitive proof. He appeared to be more neutral, leaving room for doubt, while still documenting the creature's existence as part of the broader tapestry of animals discussed by ancient travelers and naturalists. Both Aristotle and Ctesias' accounts would go to inspire countless other writers and scholars in the centuries that followed, contributing to the lasting presence of the unicorn in Western mythology. And they were far from the last to document these creatures. Pliny the Elder's Natural History was one of the largest and most comprehensive works of its kind. It was written around 77 to 79 CE, and it's an encyclopedia that covers a vast range of topics, including the natural world, human anatomy, astronomy, geography, and even art. The work spans 37 books and is divided into sections that explore everything from minerals and metals to plants, animals, and even the wonders of the world. Pliny aimed to document and catalog the known knowledge of his time, based on both his personal observations and reports from others. In it, he provided one of the most detailed and imaginative descriptions of a unicorn-like creature he called Monoceros. Now, Pliny was a Roman author, naturalist, and philosopher, known for his vast completion of knowledge on the natural world, including animals, plants, and minerals. His writings were based on accounts from travelers, soldiers, and scholars, but, like many ancient texts, they blended fact with myth, and Pliny's description of the Monoceros certainly leans heavily into the realm of the fantastical. According to Pliny, the Monoceros was a fierce, formidable creature that resembled a horse in body shape, but with a striking combination of animal features that made it sound almost mythical. The creature's head, instead of a typical horse's head, was described as resembling that of a stag, giving it an air of wild majesty. Pliny also noted that it had the feet of an elephant, making it seem even more exotic and strange. Perhaps most fantastical of it all, the Monoceros was said to have the tail of a boar, which would have been an unsettling and fierce visual contrast to its otherwise graceful horse-like body. The defining feature of the Monoceros, however, was the single black horn that projected from its forehead. Pliny described this horn as being straight, and although he did not provide exact measurements, he implied that it was a significant and imposing feature of the animal. The horn's color, being black, was particularly unusual and added to the creature's mystique. In some versions of the story, Pliny wrote that the horn had magical or medicinal properties, which was a common belief about unicorn horns in ancient and medieval times, thought to be capable of neutralizing poisons or even healing ailments. Pliny didn't give many details about where these creatures lived, but he suggested that they were found in India, aligning with earlier depictions of similar creatures from the region. His account was heavily based on secondhand reports, and while he was meticulous in documenting the natural world, his description of the Monoceros was clearly informed by the mystical and exaggerated stories circulating during his time. Some scholars believe that Pliny's Monoceros might have been inspired by real animals like the Indian rhinoceros or the aurochs, which could have been described as a horse-like in shape, but the features that seemed unfamiliar or exaggerated to those hearing about them from travelers. In Pliny's Natural History, the Monoceros is one of many examples of how the line between fact and myth were often blurred, and it represents how cultures over the centuries projected their own sense of wonder and imagination onto the creatures they encountered. The Monoceros, much like other ancient unicorn descriptions, was part of the large tradition of documenting rare and mythical beasts, creatures that became symbols of power, magic, and the unknown. Aelian, a Roman author and philosopher in the 2nd century CE, further contributed to the unicorn myth by quoting the early works of Ctesias. Aelian's writings, particularly his On the Nature of Animals, collected various stories about animals from Greek and other sources, often mixing factual accounts with folklore and mythology. In this case, Aelian reiterated Ctesias' description of a one-horned horse-like creature in India, further embedding the idea of the unicorn into ancient literature. Aelian's mention was important because it helped solidify the unicorn as part of the broader cultural narrative, especially within the Roman world. He described the creature as a horse-like animal with a single horn, drawing directly from Ctesias' early account of the Indian ass. However, Aelian didn't add much new detail to the description. Instead, he reinforced the concept that this one-horned animal was a real, rare creature that could be found in the exotic and distant lands of India, which were often perceived as mysterious and full of fantastical animals by the ancient Greeks and Romans. The creature in Aelian's account, like Ctesias' description, was portrayed as a formidable and majestic beast, but Aelian's retelling helped expanded the legend of the unicorn beyond Ctesias' original work. By quoting him, Aelian ensured that the image of a one-horned horse-like creature continued to be passed down through generations, influencing later medieval and Renaissance descriptions of unicorns. The mention of this creature in Aelian's work is significant because it shows how the unicorn myth was not just a piece of exotic lore anymore, but part of the wider animal mythology that captivated the ancient world. Then Cosmos Indicopleustes, a 6th century Greek merchant and traveler, gave us one of the more fascinating takes on a unicorn in his writings. In his work, Christian Topography, he talked about the unicorns based on stories he heard from Ethiopia. According to these accounts, the unicorn was basically unstoppable, wild, untamable, and incredibly strong, with all of its power supposedly coming from its horn. Now, Cosmos never actually saw a unicorn himself. Instead, he relied on stories from traders and travelers who had been to Ethiopia, which at the time was considered this far-off, mysterious place full of strange and exotic wonders. It was the perfect setting for a legendary creature like the unicorn. The version Cosmos described was no gentle fairy tale figure. It was fierce and mighty, emphasizing raw strength and a sense of untouchable wildness. One of the most interesting things about his description was how much importance he placed on the unicorn's horn. According to the stories he recorded, the horn wasn't just for show. It was the key to the unicorn's incredible power. This ties directly into early beliefs that the unicorn horn could purify water, heal sickness, and even detect poison. In Ethiopian lore, the unicorn was seen as both beautiful and dangerous, a creature to be respected and feared. Cosmos, being a deeply religious man, also saw the unicorn as a symbol of divine power and invincibility. Back then, unicorns were often linked to ideas of purity and righteousness, and his descriptions fit right into those beliefs. His writings helped fuel the growing fascination with unicorns in medieval Europe, blending myth and reality in a way that people couldn't get enough of, and we have only scratched the surface. More on the unicorn right after this. We are probably all more familiar with unicorns from the medieval times. You know, the pure white ones with magical abilities. But unicorns in medieval times were more than just mythical creatures. They were powerful symbols woven into art, literature, and religious beliefs. During the Middle Ages, unicorns were often depicted as graceful, horse-like creatures with a single spiraling horn, usually white, representing purity, grace, and divine power. However, they also became associated with Christianity, often representing Christ himself. Their elusive nature and supposed ability to heal with their horn was linked to Christ's purity and sacrifice. People back then truly believed unicorns were real, living in far-off exotic lands, mostly thought to be in the East like India or Africa. The bestiary, which was basically the animal encyclopedias of the time, described them as wild, untamable creatures that could only be captured by a virgin. This idea fit right into Christian teachings about the Virgin Mary and reinforced deeper themes of faith and spiritual journeys. When it comes to medieval art and literature, unicorns were everywhere. They showed up in illuminated manuscripts, carvings, and paintings, usually with slender horse-like bodies, a long horn, cloven hooves, and sometimes even a goat-like beard. Their image was super popular in heraldry, symbolizing strength, nobility, and purity, and they popped up in all kinds of medieval romances and religious texts, often teaching moral and spiritual lessons. One of the earliest Christian texts, the Physiologus, described unicorns as fierce yet gentle creatures, with the ability to purify poisoned water with their horns. And of course, there were the so-called sightings. Throughout the Middle Ages, explorers and travelers claimed to have spotted unicorns, or at least something that looked like them, in far-off lands. Most of these sightings were actually just misidentified real animals, like the aurochs, a type of antelope, narwhals, whose tusks were often sold as unicorn horns, and even rhinoceroses. Marco Polo himself reported seeing unicorns in Asia during his travels in the 13th century, but his description, let's be honest, sounded a lot more like a rhino than the magical creatures we imagine today. Still, these accounts only fueled the belief that the unicorns were out there, keeping the legend alive. The fascination didn't stop there. European royalty and the wealthy elite were obsessed with unicorns and their so-called magical powers. They would pay huge sums for what they believed to be unicorn horns, which were usually just narwhal tusks. They thought these horns could detect poison and cure diseases, so they were treasured as prized relics and kept in royal collections for centuries. Unicorns even found their way into alchemy during medieval times. Alchemists believed unicorn horns, also known as the alicorn, had the power to neutralize toxins and even extend life. These ideas made their way into many mythical texts and reinforced the unicorn's place as a symbol of spiritual enlightenment and transformation. In the late 15th or early 16th century, a stunning set of tapestries was created, now housed at the Met Cloisters in New York City. Known as the Unicorn Tapestries, these works of art are believed to have been woven in the Netherlands, likely commissioned by a wealthy noble family. They tell the story of a group of noble hunters chasing a unicorn through a beautifully detailed landscape filled with flowers, animals, and rich medieval symbolism. Though the true meaning of the tapestries remains a mystery, many believe they represent the pursuit of purity, love, or even a deeper religious meaning, possibly symbolizing Christ himself. Others have suggested that perhaps this isn't a symbol at all, that this is a real story of a real unicorn. The first tapestry, called The Start of the Hunt, sets the scene showing a group of noblemen, hunters, and dogs entering a forest in pursuit of the unicorn. The background is filled with detailed flora and fauna, including symbolic plants associated with purity and healing. Then, next is the unicorn at the fountain. The unicorn is seen dipping its horn into a fountain, a common medieval belief that unicorns could purify poisoned water. The hunters have begun to surround the creature, but it remains calm, almost unaware of its impending danger. But then comes the unicorn crosses a stream, where the unicorn moves through a dense forest and crosses a body of water. The hunters and hounds close in, but the scene is still beautifully detailed with vibrant plant life surrounding the action. Now, in The Unicorn Defends Itself, the unicorn is fully aware of the hunters and fiercely fights back. It is shown in mid-battle, using its horn to wound the hunting dogs, demonstrating its strength and power despite being outnumbered. Then comes the pivotal scene called The Unicorn is Captured by the Virgin. It shows the unicorn finally subdued, resting its head on the lap of a maiden. This reflects the medieval belief that only a pure virgin could tame a unicorn. The most tragic scene in the series, titled The Unicorn in Captivity, shows the unicorn being slain, with hunters carrying its lifeless body back to the castle. Despite the brutal moment, the rich details and vibrant background give the scene an eerie beauty. The most famous and mysterious of the tapestries, this final image shows the unicorn alive once again, sitting within a small fenced-in garden, but it's tethered but calm, surrounded by vibrant flowers and pomegranate trees. Some believe it represents the resurrection of Christ, while others see it as a symbol of love, marriage, or even a domesticated mythical creature. Unicorns were even present in Asian cultures and have a rich and fascinating history, but they're quite different from the Western idea of a white horse-like creature with a spiraling horn. Instead, unicorn-like beings in Asia, such as the Chinese Qilin, the Japanese Kirin, and the Korean Sinyu, are symbols of wisdom, prosperity, and divine protection. The Qilin, often called the Chinese unicorn, has the body of a deer, dragon-like scales, and a single horn or antler, appearing during times of peace and signaling the presence of a wise leader. In Japan, the Kirin shares similar traits and is linked to righteousness and enlightenment, even inspiring the popular Kirin beer brand. Meanwhile, Korea's Sinyu is a lion-like creature with a horn that symbolizes justice and is believed to detect truth and punish the guilty. Even today, the legend lives on with the Sola, an extremely rare animal discovered in Vietnam, often referred to as the Asian unicorn. Unlike the Western unicorn, which is associated with purity and fantasy, these mythical creatures represent moral integrity, balance, and spiritual strength across Asian cultures. The Karkadon, a creature from Persian and Middle Eastern mythology, is a far cry from the gentle unicorns of Western lore. Described in the 10th century by Persian scholar al-Biruni, it is a fearsome, aggressive beast feared by both humans and animals. It was described as having the build of a buffalo, a black, scaly skin, a dewlap hanging from under the skin. It has 3 yellow hooves on each foot. The tail is not long. The eyes lie low, further down the cheek than is in the case with all other animals. On the top of the nose there is a single horn, which is bent upwards. Known for its violent nature, it is said to roam the plains, symbolizing untamable forces of nature. Unlike the unicorn's association with purity and healing, the Karkadon represents chaos and danger. Even prehistoric art offers a glimpse into the unicorn's mystery. The unicorn panel in Lascaux Cave, located in southwestern France, is one of the most intriguing pieces of Upper Paleolithical art. Discovered in 1940, the cave is home to over 600 wall paintings, featuring animals like bulls, horses, and stags, and maybe even a unicorn. The unicorn panel was found in the famous Hall of the Bulls, and this panel showcases a horse-like figure with a single spiraled horn on its forehead. Painted using red ochre and charcoal, like much of the other artwork in the cave, its meaning remains a mystery. Some researchers have suggested it is a real prehistoric animal, while others suggest that it is purely symbolic. Now, we've explored the stories and descriptions of unicorn-like creatures from ancient mythology and history, but what about the modern world? In an era of cameras everywhere, some claim these legendary beings aren't just stuck in the pages of fairy tale novels. On one of our favorite shows, Paranormal Caught on Camera, in Season 2, Episode 2, an intriguing sighting from Llanelli, Wales, left viewers questioning the existence of unicorns. The event reportedly occurred in September 2013, when James Button and his friend Chris had just arrived at work. As they settle in for the day, James glanced out of the office window and saw what appeared to be an ordinary white horse grazing peacefully in a nearby grassy field. But then he noticed something extraordinary: a horn on the creature's head. Realizing the significance of what he was seeing, James quickly grabbed his phone and began filming. In the video, he can be heard exclaiming, "We found a unicorn," clearly in awe of the strange sight. The footage shows the white horse grazing calmly, its horn prominently visible, looking like something straight out of a fairy tale. After capturing a few moments of the creature on video, James and Chris decided they had to see it up close. The two men rushed out of their office and ran towards the field. But when they arrived at the spot, the horse had vanished without a trace. They searched the area, hoping to catch another glimpse, but the mysterious animal was gone as quickly as it had appeared. Skeptics argue the possibility of digital manipulation. However, the video quality is so clear that others suggest it is just a white horse with a fake horn on it, while believers are convinced this is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence supporting the existence of unicorns in modern times. But that isn't the only piece of video evidence. A strange YouTube video from 2011 has resurfaced, showing what appears to be a white horse standing calmly in a barn in Slovenia, casually munching on hay. At first glance, it seems like any ordinary horse, but a closer look reveals something extraordinary: a small horn protruding from the center of its forehead. What's even more compelling is that the horn doesn't look fake or attached. It seems to be growing naturally, blending seamlessly with the creature's anatomy. The backstory of this mysterious animal is just as strange as the footage itself. According to the man who uploaded the video, a hunter stumbled upon the creature deep in the forests of Slovenia. Initially, he thought he'd encountered a rare wild horse, but as he drew closer, he noticed the horn and realized this was something far more unusual. Acting on instinct, he managed to capture the animal and transport it back to his barn for safekeeping. The hunter claimed he locked the horse away not out of greed, but to protect it. He explained that Slovenia has a thriving black market where wild horses are stolen and sold at a premium. Fearing that this incredible creature would be targeted or exploited, he chose to hide it in his barn. The video shows the horse simply eating hay, unaware of the uproar it would soon cause. Since its upload, the video has sparked intense debate online. Some viewers are convinced it's undeniable proof of a living unicorn, while skeptics insist it must be a hoax, possibly involving an altered animal, clever editing, or a rare genetic mutation. Experts in animal biology have weighed in, but without further evidence or a closer examination of the horse, the mystery remains unsolved. In November of 2012, a rather extraordinary announcement came from the North Korean government that sent waves of intrigue and skepticism around the globe. Officials revealed that they had discovered what they described as a unicorn lair near the capital city of Pyongyang, claiming it as the resting place of the legendary unicorn ridden by King Dongmyung, the founder of the ancient Goryeo kingdom. The lair was supposedly located in a mountainous region, and the government insisted that the site had been identified through archaeological research and careful investigation. According to the claim, a stone marker with the inscription Unicorn Lair was found at the site, bolstering their argument that the area had been historically significant. But the announcement was met with immediate skepticism, both within the scientific community and internationally. Critics quickly pointed out that the so-called discovery had little verifiable evidence to back it up. Many dismissed it as a publicity stunt aimed at bolstering national pride and cementing the legacy of King Dongmyung, who is an important figure in North Korean mythology and history. The lair's reported discovery seemed to serve more as a political propaganda than a genuine archaeological find. The unicorn itself was linked to the kingdom's founding in the North Korean narrative, but there was no solid proof of its existence, making the discovery appear more fantastical than factual. Despite the skepticism, the announcement continued to be promoted by the North Korean regime as a remarkable historical and cultural event. The unicorn lair became an odd chapter in the ongoing saga of North Korea's attempts to present itself as the protector of ancient heritage and culture. Whether a true archaeological breakthrough or a clever piece of propaganda, the unicorn lair of North Korea remains a curious and largely unsubstantiated claim in the history of mythical creatures. Unicorns have enchanted audiences across all forms of media, from ancient art to modern pop culture. In movies and TV, they've shown up as magical and mysterious beings like the ethereal unicorn in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or the depiction of them as the king of beasts, all black and the most feared creature by monsters in Shazam! Fury of the Gods. and even in the new upcoming A24 film, Death of a Unicorn, which depicts them as vengeful, fearsome creatures. For kids, unicorns are iconic in My Little Pony, representing magic and friendship, and they often show up in Barbie movies as symbols of purity and wonder. Video games also feature unicorns, like in The Sims 3, where players can adopt one, or the rainbow blasting unicorn in Robot Unicorn Attack. They've also been brought to life in books like Peter S. Beagle's The Last Unicorn, and are featured in countless kids' stories. But unicorns aren't just a modern fascination. Their beauty has been immortalized in medieval art, most famously the unicorn tapestries at the Met cloisters. Similarly, depictions can be found in artwork around the world, showing unicorns as symbols of grace, beauty, and the unattainable. We can see that no matter what time period, these creatures hold popularity and wonder in whatever form of media and art is popular during that time. More on the unicorn right after this. As you might expect, there are countless theories about what unicorns could actually be, but these theories generally fall into three main categories: a real animal mistaken for a unicorn, a symbolic or metaphorical creation, or perhaps a yet-to-be-discovered creature that once roamed the earth. One of the most popular theories is that historical accounts of unicorns stem from misidentifications of real animals. Creatures like the aurochs, which is an antelope with long straight horns, could have been mistaken for a one-horned creature if viewed from the side. Similarly, the rhinoceros, with its massive single horn and armored appearance, could have inspired tales of unicorns, particularly in regions unfamiliar with the species, which I think is the case for the ancient hieroglyphics and cave art. Narwhals, known for their long spiraled tusks, were often linked to the unicorn myths, not just because of their likeness, but because their tusks were traded as supposed unicorn horns in medieval Europe. It is also possible that tales of unicorns could reference rare genetic mutations, or even shedding horns. This theory keeps alive the tantalizing idea that unicorns, in some form, may have once existed. These animals, exotic and rare to certain parts of the world, could easily have fueled the imagination of early storytellers. Another possibility is that unicorns were real, but belonged to a species that is now extinct. Paleontologists have found evidence of prehistoric creatures called Elasmothorium, also known as the Siberian unicorn. These creatures were massive rhinoceros-like animals with a single large horn. It's possible that ancient humans encountered such creatures, and their legends were passed down through generations, evolving into the unicorn myths we know today. This would explain why some descriptions said it wasn't pretty, or like a horse but bigger and bulkier. Of course, unicorns may not have been based on real creatures at all, but rather served as powerful symbols in art, literature, and mythology. They often represented purity, grace, and untouchable beauty, especially in medieval Europe, where they were associated with religious themes such as the Virgin Mary. The famous unicorn tapestries, for example, depict the unicorn as a mystical and almost divine being. In other cultures, they symbolized power, protection, or even danger, as seen with the Persian Carcassonne. This theory suggests that unicorns were less about actual sightings and more about embodying ideals and virtues that transcended time. And lastly, there is the theory that maybe these famous creatures really are a species of horse with amazing abilities. Maybe they were wiped off the earth when humans started to take over, or maybe they are hidden in some part of the world we have yet to find. And if so many cultures throughout history have described unicorns in such similar ways, is it really so impossible that they exist exactly as they've always been depicted? Some believe that their rarity isn't due to extinction, but rather their ability to remain hidden. Legends have long tied unicorns to magic, purity, and wisdom. So what if their mythical nature allows them to conceal themselves or even alter their appearance for survival? If they truly possess some kind of supernatural ability, perhaps they've learned to evade human detection, only revealing themselves to whom they trust. Wild horses roam across nearly every continent, blending seamlessly into the landscapes of remote plains, forests, and mountains. From the Mustangs of North America to the Przewalski's horses of Mongolia, these untamed herds have survived despite human expansion. If unicorns were real, what better way to evade detection than by hiding among them? A single-horned creature could easily go unnoticed with a sea of ordinary horses, especially if their mystical abilities allow them to alter their appearance when necessary. Perhaps what we think are ordinary wild horses have, at times, been something more. Creatures of legend slipping past our gaze, hidden in plain sight. I mean, when I started researching this, I giggled, thinking this was going to be an easy, not real cryptid. But after hearing how many centuries and different parts of the world the unicorn inhabits, I think that there might actually be something to this. So, what do you think? Are unicorns really out there? Be sure to follow us on Instagram @OutThereCryptids for episode posts, updates, and more. Join our community on Discord, where we dive even deeper into the mysteries we explore here on the podcast. The link can be found on our Instagram. And if you're loving the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. As a patron, you'll get exclusive perks like bonus episodes, early access, and even more surprises. See you next week.